Hey guys, welcome back to Salem the Crafting MMO, and in this video we're gonna be talking about insanity. That's right, there's a mechanic that's been implemented, not recently, but some of you may still be unfamiliar with what insanity is. And insanity is sort of like, well, the concept is similar to losing your sanity in the game Don't Starve, if you know what Don't Starve is, and how over time your insanity slowly drops, and it's sort of part of the survival mechanic of these sorts of games where you're out in the wilderness and you really do have to maintain your sanity, and going crazy is a bad thing out in the wild. So generally what you need to know is that insanity rises over time because basically as things go along, if you don't do anything, your insanity will slowly rise. And what's gonna happen is that after a certain amount of time, you gain a madness level. So there's insanity and madness level, and there's 10 madness levels, and when you reach the maximum level of madness, your character actually permanently dies. You just die of going crazy, basically. So your character goes so crazy, he basically kills himself. So how long do you actually have? Well, you don't have to panic or worry. You've actually got plenty of time. If you just leave your character like this, just standing there doing absolutely nothing, it's going to take you between 30 to 50 hours of doing absolutely nothing for your character to actually reach maximum madness and die. So there is plenty of time. 30 hours is a lot of time, really, especially in game time. So, how do you know what level of madness you have? Well, there's no bar for you to check, but up here you can see these masks next to your humors at the top. Well, these masks will start to change, and this is a 0 level madness, basically no madness whatsoever. The one on the right looks happy, the one on the left looks sad. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna overlay a graphic here and show you, it's a GIF, so it's slowly changing, and you can see that as madness increases, you're gonna go from pretty happy looking face on the right to both faces looking pretty scary, and eventually skulls, and when it reaches full skull graphic, well, you're basically next to dead. So you really don't want to get that far along. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, it means that you can't leave your character online to avoid being stalked for crimes that you committed. So if you're a criminal and you want to avoid being stalked, well, what happens is you can actually, your crime sense can be followed, and your character, when you're offline, can be sent to the stocks. And that was a problem because people would just stay online forever and AFK. So now you can't AFK unless you want your character to die. So yeah, it's really a bad idea. The game punishes you for staying online for a long period of time for doing nothing. Now, let's talk about some effects of insanity. Now, there are a few things that we can talk about, but the first effect of insanity is that your character is going to start hearing voices. Voices are well, it's a little creepy, but generally it's unpleasant to be hearing voices all the time. But besides that, there are things called psychotic episodes, and at any level of madness, you can have a psychotic episode, but as madness increases to higher levels of madness, well, then you're gonna have a worse time with these psychotic episodes. So there's a lot of them, so I'm just gonna mention a few of them just so you know what they're like. One of them, which I personally encountered, was that I met the Precious. Now let me bring up my inventory here. The Precious is a golden ring, and it's just called the Precious. And well, if I try and click on it, it says this to me.
Take your fingers off me, you filthy pilgrim.
Exactly. So obviously that's a Lord of the Rings reference there, but you can't actually remove it from your inventory. Well, you can't well, yes, you can't click on it and remove it, but what you can do is you can open a container. Let me just go ahead and open up this container here. Let me take out some of these seeds, and you can shift left click on it to transfer it to a basket or something. And that's one way you can get it out of your inventory. You can leave it in a stump because you really don't want to hold on to the Precious, because the Precious will sort of do some bad things to the gems in your inventory, so that's not always such a good idea, keeping that around. Another psychotic episode you could encounter is that your character, they're entirely positive that they are a turkey. So I have not personally encountered this one, but that's one of the things that can happen. Another one is that psychotic episode where your own blood is found all over the cloth of that's produced from a loom. So if you go ahead and use a loom, like that thing over there, and produce some cloth, it might come out covered in blood, which is not too pleasant. And there's even a psychotic episode where an all-consuming flame washes over your inventory. So these psychotic episodes can get pretty bad, so it's a good idea to try and remain sane in Salem. So, knowing the dangers of insanity, let me go over a few things that will increase your insanity. So, just doing nothing slowly increases insanity and you can gain madness levels, but there are certain things that can actually make things worse. So, for example, you could pull a stinger from a bee. So, let me go ahead and grab a bee here from my bee skep here. Just gonna grab one out. So this is something that you really shouldn't be doing unless absolutely necessary. You can actually pick up a drone bee and pull stinger, and you get that bee stinger, and that actually increases, well, it gives you insanity. So that's, try not to do that too much, because that's, well, it's an unpleasant thing to do. And generally messing with creatures like that and killing creatures will sort of add insanity. Pulling a bee stinger adds a tiny amount of insanity, so does wringing a squirrel's neck. But but some larger creatures like wringing a turkey's neck gives a bit more insanity than those smaller creatures, and like cutting a caterpillar from a cocoon adds a good amount of insanity. And oh, look at that, looks like there's a piñata party on Providence soon. Yes, there was just a patch which added piñatas into the game, but that will be a topic for another video. Now, where was I? Oh yes, gaining insanity. If you pick up daisies in around Providence, those little white flowers, you can pluck the petals and it goes, she loves me not, she loves me not. And if you actually actually let me go get a daisy for you, just so I can show you this. Alright, here we go. We're just slightly north of Providence here. You can see I brought the map back up, and you'll find these little white flowers which you can actually pick up. And picking wildflowers like this, wildflowers, not farmed or garden flowers, but picking wildflowers like that will actually reduce the insanity. So just going around picking up flowers is a good way to do it. But these daisies, you can right click them and you can click on She Loves Me.
Yay!
And if you do it again, it's She Loves Me Not.
Forever alone.
Forever alone indeed. But if the flower terminates on She Loves Me, you actually reduce some insanity. And if the flower ends on She Loves Me Not, you actually gain a bit of insanity. So that's a little bit of a gamble there. But besides that, some other things which are worse for your insanity, worse for your sanity, is sniffing Satan salts. That adds a great deal of insanity. Robbing a grave adds a huge amount of insanity. Murdering and scalping adds a lot of insanity as well, but not knocking someone out, not KOing someone. That doesn't add insanity, but killing and scalping definitely. Seeing various monsters in the wild, like a whippush or those rare sort of beasts and monsters in the wild, will actually add insanity as well. And being online during a blood moon adds a tremendous amount of insanity. So it's really, really bad and really, really risky being online during a blood moon. So be careful about that. But I just want to show you a bit of a sample here, a video from a friend of mine on YouTube called The Poyo. He also makes a couple of Salem videos, and he's got this video on licking moldy boards.
Hello, and welcome to our new video. In this video we're going to lick moldy boards until we become insane. So I'll start licking the first moldy board.
So the footage you're seeing now is actually from his video of licking moldy boards. And licking moldy boards basically is a really, really bad idea, because well, it basically adds almost a madness level each time you lick a board, and that's a very good way and very quick way to get yourself killed. Now, you do get moldy boards by trying to make boards but then handling the structure wrongly and placing it in the wrong spot, and then they end up moldy. But yeah, so just generally don't lick moldy boards unless you actually want to get rid of your character. Alright, so now let's talk about some things that can reduce your insanity. So there's basic things that you can do to reduce insanity, like whittling, fishing, catching butterflies, picking flowers from the wild, planting things, and cooking things. Those all remove small amounts of insanity, and it's a great way just to keep things sane. And just in general, if you study an item every 4 to 8 minutes, you'll probably never gain a madness level. Because studying an item removes a fair bit of insanity from your character. So that's always great. Now, one thing I should talk about is our bed. So let me travel back to my home here and show you my bed. Alright, here we are back in base, and you can see here I've got a leafy bed, which is sort of the lowest form of bed, and it can be placed outside of a house and stuff. If you go into build and let me see where it is. It should be under not tools and utilities, it's buildings and structures, not houses. There's a furniture section somewhere here. Furniture, tables and chairs, leafy bed. And you can see there's a simple bed as well. But a simple bed, it has to be built inside a building. So it's not going to be your first ever bed. But if you put down a leafy bed, it's pretty easy to make. You just got to get 10 oak duff, some myrtle oak leaves, maple leaves, and some branches, and you can build a leafy bed very easily. And a bed actually has a nice feature where if you try to log out of the game, it actually puts a percentage. If you want to skip that, you can just right-click on a bed and sleep. And you pretty much always want to do this because sleeping removes insanity. It doesn't remove madness levels, but it does remove insanity from your character. And basically, if you sleep long enough, it'll reset that madness level back to the start, but it won't remove a madness level. If you want to remove a madness level, then you could sleep with a teddy bear, but a teddy bear is somewhat difficult to get because if you go into craft, inspirationals, toys, and teddy bear, it's something that you can hold in your hand while you sleep, but it requires a bear skin, fluffy stuffings, and antler button. So it's a relatively, not a high level item, but to get the fluffy stuffing, you're gonna need to get lace and fancy work, which does require 4,100 thread and needle, which is quite high depending on where your character is, but it's not like an early game skill. And bear skins, of course, well, you're not going to kill a bear until your humans are quite high. So that's going to be a challenge. You could buy it off someone, but people are selling teddy bears for like, I saw 500, 600 silver, some up to 800 silver, so it can be quite expensive. Antler buttons are generally easier to make, but antlers can be quite difficult to find. I personally found this guy selling jackalope antlers for like 8 or 9 coins, so I just bought a couple there just because. But that's something that you're not going to come across too often. So sleeping with a teddy bear is a little bit difficult. But if you do have the money, oh, I should also mention for teddy bears, witches can curse teddy bears. So if a teddy bear is cursed, when you sleep with it, you'll actually gain a madness level. It works the opposite. So that's very dangerous. If you sleep with a teddy bear and you gain madness, get rid of the teddy bear. It's cursed. All right, so next thing I got to talk about in terms of insanity, and pretty much the last thing, is smoking. Now, smoking is something that was added with insanity, and it's something that you can do to reduce insanity and madness levels. Now, it's quite complicated or quite expensive, depending, but let me just prep a couple things here and show you. Alright, so the first kind of smoking is gonna be tobacco smoking. And tobacco is something you can farm, but you need a lot of affluence to be able to do that. So if you remember me slotting items and objects into my clothes where you can increase your productivity and stuff like that, then there's certain items which add affluence, and affluence actually helps you enter certain buildings in town, but it also helps with the yield of farming tobacco. But tobacco farming requires 10,000 points in a skill, so you're not going to be doing that anytime soon at the low levels, but you can buy tobacco from the player stalls quite readily. But if you do happen to farm and you get these tobacco leaves, you can go ahead and dry these tobacco leaves on a drying frame. So I accidentally dropped it on the ground there. Let me put that back. Okay, here we go. This menu is blocking the way. Okay, here we go. There we go. You can actually dry it on a drying frame and it will become dried tobacco. It takes a couple days, I'm pretty sure. But once you get dried tobacco, you need to turn it into shredded tobacco, and the shredded tobacco can be put into a tobacco pipe or a cob pipe. So, it looks like we're going to be shutting down soon. But a cob pipe is going to be an item you can craft under, let's see, where is it? It's under tools and a tobacco pipe, which you can make with briar root. Briar root you get from destroying one of those spiky plants in desert biomes, and those can be quite hard to find unless you're actually in a desert biome. So if you're not in a desert biome, you could also get a cob pipe made from roasted corn on the cob and a wood block if you happen to be doing some corn farming, but generally you can buy either of those. And if I take this shredded tobacco and right-click onto the tobacco pipe, you can see it now content is shredded broadleaf tobacco, and I can then put this in my hand, and let me move this down, put this in my hand, and you can actually take a puff, but there's no reason to take the edge off. I'm not currently mad, but each puff will reduce your insanity and will have a chance to reduce a madness level. And the higher your madness level, then the better chance it is of removing a madness level. Alright, so before I go, I'm going to show you one last little secret in the world, which I can't enter quite yet, but it's something you should know when it comes to insanity. Alright, so the last thing I want to show you about insanity is that back in the main city here in Providence, there's a back alley here. And some of you might have been back here before, and I'm not sure if you know about this now, but if you go down this back alley, down back here, you'll find a guy who's selling snake oil. And snake oil is a questionable potion, which generally I wouldn't really go and buy some snake oil from this guy, and you can see people have sort of blocked him off there, and generally it's not a good idea. But in front of him, there's this place called The Den. And if you don't have enough affluence on your items, you can't actually enter. If I try to enter here, it says you are not affluent enough to enter this building, pretty much like the church. But this little building back here, this den, inside actually has some hookahs, which are basically sort of shisha pipe sort of thing, and you can actually smoke inside the den, which will remove a madness level, but if you smoke too much, it'll actually knock you out, so that's not good. But if you are high enough level and have enough affluence, you can actually go in there and then do some smoking to help you with your insanity and madness. Oh, smoking the hookah also does return a great deal of inspiration. So if you're doing some high-level studying, then that's going to be very useful for you. Anyway, that pretty much wraps up all the basics and everything you need to know about insanity and madness. So hopefully you found this video useful, and at least you shouldn't worry too much about insanity and madness, because it really isn't too much of a difficulty to deal with. I myself have never gained the madness level, and that's just from playing normally. And just generally, if you sleep in a bed and reduce your insanity every time you're done and don't AFK and stuff like that, then you're gonna be absolutely fine. Alright, so that wraps up my video on Salem's insanity and madness. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.